March 15th, 44 BC. Julius Caesar walks into the Senate. He trusts these men. He calls them friends. Brutus, his protege, someone he mentored, someone he elevated to power, stands among them. 23 stab wounds later, Caesar bleeds out on the marble floor. His final words, looking at Brutus, "Et tu, Brute? You too, Brutus?" The man he trusted most held the blade that killed him. Machiavelli studied this moment for years. He understood what Caesar failed to see. Trust is not a virtue in the game of power. Trust is a weapon your enemies use against you. The closer they are, the sharper the blade. I'm going to show you 7 signs that someone in your circle right now, someone you trust, someone you confide in, is preparing to betray you. These are not theories. These are patterns Machiavelli identified in the courts of Renaissance Italy, where one mistake meant poison in your wine or a dagger in your back. Pay attention. Your position depends on it. You pride yourself on seeing the good in people. You believe loyalty is reciprocal. You think if you treat people well, they'll stand by you. This is precisely why you're vulnerable. Machiavelli wrote that men are ungrateful, fickle, false, cowardly, and covetous. Not some men. Men. Human nature doesn't change because you wish it would. The person smiling at your success is calculating how to claim it. The colleague who seems so supportive is mapping your weaknesses. The friend who knows all your secrets is determining their market value. You felt it before, haven't you? That sick realization when someone you trusted revealed their true nature. The business partner who suddenly froze you out. The friend who turned your confidences into weapons. The mentor who sabotaged you the moment you became a threat. And you asked yourself, how did I miss it? The signs were there. You ignored them because you wanted to believe people are better than they are. That ends today. The cost of misplaced trust isn't just emotional pain. It's your career destroyed. Your reputation shredded, your resources stolen, your position eliminated. While you were being authentic and vulnerable, they were being strategic. Machiavelli's warning echoes across 5 centuries because the pattern never changes. The betrayed always say the same thing. I never saw it coming. But that's a lie you tell yourself. You saw it, you felt it, you rationalized it away. You made excuses for behavior that should have alarmed you. You confused their interest in you with loyalty to you. Fatal error. Now the first sign. They praise you excessively. Listen carefully to this, because it contradicts everything you've been taught about positive relationships. When someone flatters you constantly, when their admiration seems disproportionate to your actual achievements, when they tell you exactly what you want to hear with suspicious precision, you're being set up. Machiavelli observed that flatterers are everywhere in positions of power because flattery works. It bypasses your rational mind and feeds your ego. And while your ego is purring with satisfaction, you stop scrutinizing their motives. Genuine respect is measured and specific. It acknowledges your strengths without exaggeration. Flattery is effusive and generic. It's designed to make you feel superior so you'll lower your guard. The flatterer studies you, identifies your insecurities, and tells you you're brilliant in precisely those areas. You're not suspicious because it feels so good. This is the trap. Caesar surrounded himself with flatterers who told him he was indispensable, beloved, untouchable. They praised him until he believed his own mythology. Then they killed him. Watch for the person who agrees with you too readily, who laughs too hard at your jokes, who constantly seeks your validation while offering theirs, who positions themselves as your greatest admirer. Ask yourself what they gain from your inflated self-perception. Because they gain something. Perhaps you stop noticing their incompetence. Perhaps you share information you shouldn't. Perhaps you promote them beyond their merit. Perhaps you trust them with access they'll later exploit. Flattery is an investment. They're expecting returns. The second sign, they need you too much too fast. Intimacy has a natural pace. Trust builds gradually through repeated interactions and demonstrated reliability. When someone accelerates this process, when they create artificial closeness rapidly, when they manufacture dependency before it's earned, you're being manipulated. Machiavelli understood that sudden intimacy is a tactic. It creates obligation before you've assessed their character. They share deep personal struggles immediately. They position you as their only hope. They create emergencies that only you can solve. They mirror your values, your interests, your worldview with uncanny precision. It feels like fate, like you found a kindred spirit. This is theater. They've studied you and are performing the role of your ideal ally. The goal is to bypass the normal vetting process and embed themselves in your trust before you realize they haven't earned it. Think about how this plays out. They need your help with a crisis. You provide it. Now there's a bond. They confide something sensitive. You're honored by their trust. You reciprocate. Now they have leverage. They make themselves indispensable to a project. You become dependent on their contribution. Then they have power. Each step seems innocent. The pattern is predatory. Real relationships develop organically. Manufactured relationships serve an agenda. Historical example: Cesare Borgia, Machiavelli's model for the prince, employed this tactic brilliantly. He would identify powerful figures, manufacture situations requiring their assistance, create the appearance of deep alliance, extract what he needed, then eliminate them. The ones who survived were those who recognized the artificial acceleration and maintained distance. The ones who died believed the intimacy was real. What are the red flag behaviors? They know too much about you too quickly. They've researched you thoroughly before the first meaningful interaction. They create situations where you must help them, establishing a pattern of their need and your provision. They share secrets that seem valuable, but are actually calculated to elicit your secrets in return. They use phrases like, "I've never told anyone this before," or "I feel like I can trust you completely," before trust has been established. They're scripting intimacy. The third sign: they share secrets about others with you. This one is simple, but most people miss its significance. If someone gossips to you, they gossip about you. If they betray confidences to you, they'll betray your confidences to others. Machiavelli was explicit about this. The person who cannot keep another's secrets cannot be trusted with yours. Character is consistent. Disloyalty in one relationship predicts disloyalty in all relationships. But you rationalize it, don't you? You think you're special. You think the bond you share is different. You think they're telling you these things because they trust you uniquely. Wrong. They're telling you these things because they're constitutionally incapable of loyalty. They're revealing who they are, and you're ignoring the revelation because it feels good to be the chosen confidant. Here's the trap you've already fallen into. You've become their accomplice. Every secret they share about someone else, every betrayal they confess, every confidence they violate in your presence, you've witnessed it. You've nodded along. You've said nothing. Your silence is complicity, and complicity creates a bond, but not the bond you think. It's not intimacy. It's mutual corruption. They've made you a co-conspirator in their disloyalty, and now you're invested in believing they won't do the same to you. Because if they would betray you, what does that make you for having participated in their betrayal of others? This is the mechanism. This is how they operate. They don't just gossip for entertainment. They gossip to test you, to compromise you, to bind you to them through shared transgression. And it works. It works because you're human, and humans mistake shared secrets for intimacy. But Machiavelli understood what you're refusing to see. Shared secrets with a disloyal person aren't intimacy. They're insurance against you. Write in the comments which sign you've seen most often. Sign 1, excessive praise. Sign 2, manufactured dependency. Sign 3, gossip and betrayal of others' confidence. I want to know what you're encountering in the wild. Your pattern recognition will sharpen by naming what you've witnessed. Now we move deeper into the signs that require more sophisticated observation. The ones that separate the merely cautious from the truly strategic. Sign 4. They test your boundaries repeatedly. Small violations, incremental transgressions, a borrowed item not returned, a commitment broken with a casual excuse, a confidence shared when you ask for discretion, a boundary stated and then ignored. You notice it. You feel the discomfort. But you say nothing because it seems minor. Because you don't want to appear petty. Because you tell yourself it's not worth the confrontation. And that silence, that accommodation, that's exactly what they're measuring. Machiavelli observed that men respect what they fear and despise what tolerates their disrespect. Every boundary violation you permit is data they collect about how much they can take from you. This isn't accidental. This isn't thoughtlessness. This is reconnaissance. They're mapping your tolerance for exploitation. They're discovering whether you're the type who enforces consequences or the type who absorbs indignities in the name of keeping peace. And if you're the latter, you've just identified yourself as an optimal target for future betrayal. The pattern is always escalation. It starts small because small violations are easy to rationalize away. They're late to meet you, but they apologize charmingly. They reveal something you told them in confidence, but only to one other person, and they had a good reason. They ask for a favor that crosses a line, but it's just this once, and they really need it. Each violation is individually forgivable. That's the design. They're not testing whether they can betray you catastrophically tomorrow. They're testing whether you'll permit them to betray you incrementally today. And incremental betrayals left unchecked compound into catastrophic ones. Watch what happens when you enforce a boundary with someone who's testing you. The response reveals everything. A person of genuine character will apologize, adjust, and respect the limit. A person planning eventual betrayal will react with disproportionate emotion, hurt feelings, accusations that you're being unreasonable, guilt-tripping about how much they've done for you, reframing your boundary as a personal attack on them. This reaction isn't about the specific boundary. It's about their irritation that you've disrupted their reconnaissance. You were supposed to be pliable. You were supposed to absorb the test violation. Your resistance indicates you might resist larger violations, and that makes you less useful to their long-term plans. Here's what you must understand. Boundary testing isn't always conscious. Some people do it instinctively, without articulating to themselves what they're doing. But conscious or not, the function is identical. They're determining your exploitability quotient, and if you fail this test by permitting violations, you pass their test for victimhood. You've qualified yourself as someone who can be betrayed without significant resistance. Sign 5. They isolate you from others, subtly at first. A comment here, a suggestion there. They express concern about that friend who doesn't really understand you. They point out how that colleague seems jealous of your success. They create doubt about the people who've been in your life longer than they have. And they do it from a position of apparent care. They're just looking out for you. They just want what's best for you. They just think you deserve better than people who don't fully appreciate you. This is conspiracy theory applied at the interpersonal level. They're constructing a narrative in which everyone else is suspect, and they alone can be trusted. Machiavelli wrote extensively about how conspirators isolate their targets from alternative sources of information and support. Because a person with multiple strong relationships is difficult to betray. They have people who will notice inconsistencies. They have people who will ask questions. They have people who will provide alternative perspectives. Isolation removes these safeguards. Watch for the pattern of triangulation. They don't just criticize others to you. They criticize you to others while appearing to defend you. I'm worried about him. He's been making questionable decisions lately. She's been so stressed, I don't think she's seeing things clearly. They position themselves as the concerned party, the one trying to help, while simultaneously undermining your credibility and relationships. This serves multiple functions. It isolates you by damaging your other relationships. It positions them as your primary support when those relationships weaken. And it preemptively discredits you if you later accuse them of betrayal. After all, they've already established the narrative that you've been unstable, stressed, paranoid. The isolation doesn't feel like isolation when it's happening. It feels like someone finally understands you. It feels like you found the one person who truly sees your value while everyone else overlooks it. This feeling is the bait. And you're taking it because humans are wired to bond with those who validate them and distance from those who complicate their self-image. The person isolating you is exploiting this wiring. They're not offering genuine understanding. They're offering the narcotic of unconditional validation while systematically removing the people who might interfere with their plans for you. How do you identify this? Simple test. A person who genuinely cares about you wants you to have multiple strong relationships. They encourage your friendships. They're comfortable with you having confidants besides them. They don't compete for exclusive access to your trust. A person planning to betray you needs you dependent solely on them. They need your reality filtered entirely through their interpretation. They need you to have nowhere else to turn when they make their move. Isolation is preparation for betrayal, always. Sign 6. Their actions contradict their words. Machiavelli's most repeated principle. Judge by deeds, not promises. Judge by what they do when they think you're not watching, not what they say when they know you are. The gap between word and deed is the gap between their performance and their character. And that gap, when it exists consistently, is a chasm you will fall into. Everyone occasionally fails to live up to their stated intentions. That's human inconsistency. What we're identifying here is pattern. The person who speaks constantly of loyalty but whose actions serve only themselves. The person who proclaims transparency but whose explanations never quite add up. The person who promises support but vanishes when you actually need them. The person whose words paint them as your greatest ally but whose deeds position them for your replacement. This requires you to develop a specific skill. The ability to ignore the soundtrack and watch the film. Their words are the soundtrack. Compelling, emotional, perfectly crafted to generate the feelings they want you to have. But the film, the actual sequence of their behaviors, tells a different story. They say they want your success, but they forget to mention your achievements to people who matter. They say they value your input, but they make decisions without consulting you. They say they're committed to the partnership, but they're building alternative options you only discover by accident. The contradiction isn't always obvious. Skilled manipulators maintain surface-level consistency. They'll perform loyalty in visible moments. They'll make gestures that seem supportive, but watch the pattern over time. Watch what they do when there's a choice between your interest and theirs. Watch whether their actions consistently align with their proclaimed values, or whether their actions consistently serve their advancement, while their words manage your perception. Here's the test Machiavelli would apply. Create a situation where their interest and your interest diverge, even slightly. Not a major conflict, just a moment where supporting you costs them something minor. Inconvenience, social capital, a small financial cost, time. And watch what they do, not what they say about what they do, what they actually do. The person of genuine loyalty will incur small costs for your benefit without resentment. The person planning betrayal will find reasons why this particular situation is exceptional, why they can't help this time, why you're being unreasonable to expect it. They'll have explanations, they always have explanations, but their actions will reveal that when choice emerges, they choose themselves. Every time. Sign 7. They benefit from your downfall. This is Machiavelli's ultimate diagnostic. Cui bono? Who benefits? Follow the incentives and you find the betrayer. Not sometimes, always, because betrayal isn't typically emotional. It's economic. Someone calculates, consciously or unconsciously, that they gain more from your destruction than from your success. And once that calculation tips, your betrayal becomes inevitable. Map their incentive structure. What do they gain if you fail? Do they get your position, your clients, your reputation, your resources, your partner? What scarcity are you both competing for? Because if your downfall creates an opportunity they want, you're not looking at a potential ally. You're looking at a delayed enemy. They may be friendly now, they may be helpful now, but they're friendly and helpful in a context where betraying you doesn't yet serve them. Change the context, change the incentives, and you change their behavior. This is why Machiavelli advised princes to be deeply suspicious of those who stood to inherit their power. Not because inheritance makes someone evil, because inheritance creates incentive structures that make betrayal rational. The nephew who's charming and dutiful while the king is young and strong becomes the nephew who conspires when the king shows weakness. Not because the nephew's character changed, because the cost-benefit analysis of betrayal changed. You must think like an economist of human behavior. What does this person gain from your success? What do they gain from your failure? If the answer is they gain more from your failure, you're dealing with someone whose incentives are misaligned with your survival. They may not betray you today. They may not betray you this year. but they will betray you the moment the calculation tips in favor of betrayal. This isn't cynicism. This is mathematics. Look for the subtle signs that they're positioning themselves for your absence. They're building relationships with your contacts, but framing it innocently. They're learning your systems, your methods, your secrets, but calling it collaboration. They're creating narratives about your limitations, your mistakes, your vulnerabilities, but disguising it as concern. They're constructing the infrastructure of your replacement while maintaining the performance of your support. And when the moment comes, when you stumble, or when opportunity presents itself, they won't hesitate, because they've already done the psychological and practical work of preparing for your removal. The most dangerous version of this sign is when they benefit from your downfall, and they're the ones creating the conditions for that downfall. They're not just waiting for you to fail. They're engineering your failure while appearing to help you avoid it. They give you bad advice framed as good advice. They withhold critical information while claiming to keep you informed. They create problems and then solve them publicly, building their reputation at the expense of yours. They're not passively benefiting from circumstances. They're actively constructing the circumstances from which they'll benefit. How do you identify this? Track outcomes, not intentions. Over time, does your position strengthen or weaken through your interactions with this person? Are you more secure or less secure? More connected or more isolated? More capable or more dependent? If the trend is toward your weakening and their strengthening, the stated intentions are irrelevant. The functional reality is they're extracting value from you and positioning themselves to extract more. That extraction has a logical endpoint: your expendability. You now possess what most people never acquire: the ability to see betrayal before it manifests. These 7 signs aren't speculation. They're not paranoia. They're pattern recognition based on centuries of observed human behavior. Machiavelli didn't invent these patterns. He simply had the courage to name them while others pretended they didn't exist. You're no longer one of the others. You no longer have the luxury of comfortable delusion. You've taken the knowledge, and knowledge creates responsibility. You're responsible now for using what you see, for acting on these signs rather than explaining them away, for protecting yourself rather than hoping you're wrong. Because hope in the context of these 7 signs isn't optimism, it's suicide. The people who betray you aren't monsters. That's what makes this difficult. They're ordinary people responding to incentives, operating from weakness, pursuing their interests at your expense. They may even feel conflicted about it. They may even genuinely like you. But liking you won't stop them. Feeling bad about it won't stop them. When their interests demand your betrayal, they will betray you, and their affection will simply make them craft better justifications for why they had no choice. This is the world Machiavelli described. Not the world we wish existed. The world that does exist. And in this world, your survival depends on seeing clearly, on recognizing these signs, on acting on them before they act on you. You don't have to become cruel. You don't have to betray first. But you do have to withdraw trust from those who've demonstrated they'll weaponize it. You do have to create distance from those showing these patterns. You do have to prioritize your security over their comfort. Some of you are already thinking of someone who fits multiple signs, someone you've been making excuses for, someone you've been hoping you're wrong about. You're not wrong. Your instincts detected the pattern before your conscious mind wanted to accept it. That discomfort you've been feeling, that vague unease, that's not anxiety. That's pattern recognition operating below conscious awareness. Your subconscious has been tracking these signs. It's been collecting data. It's been trying to warn you. And you've been overruling it with rationalizations. Stop overruling it. The most dangerous thing you can do with this knowledge is understand it intellectually, but fail to apply it practically. These signs mean nothing if you see them and do nothing. And I know the resistance you're feeling. Acting on these signs feels harsh. It feels like you're being the bad guy. It feels like you're destroying something that might be salvageable. But you're not destroying anything. You're simply refusing to participate in your own destruction. There's nothing noble about making yourself an easy target. There's nothing virtuous about ignoring clear warnings because you want to believe in people's better nature. Machiavelli's students rule, his victims serve. This isn't metaphor. Throughout history, the people who understood these principles, who acted on these signs, who protected themselves strategically, those people survived and thrived. The people who ignored these signs, who prioritized being nice over being safe, who confused trust with wisdom, those people were betrayed, destroyed, and forgotten. You're deciding right now which category you'll occupy. You have the knowledge. These 7 signs are now part of your operating system. Excessive praise that flatters rather than evaluates. Dependency that manifests too quickly and too completely. Gossip that reveals their capacity for disloyalty. Boundary violations that test your enforcement. Isolation that removes your alternative relationships. Contradictions between their words and deeds, and benefit structures that reward your downfall. 7 signs, 7 warnings, 7 opportunities to protect yourself before protection becomes impossible. The sophisticated move isn't paranoia, it's calibration. You don't treat everyone as a potential betrayer. You watch for these specific signs, and when you see them, not just one but multiple signs forming a pattern, you act. You create distance. You limit information flow. You reduce dependency. You build alternative relationships. You protect critical resources. You prepare for separation, not because you're certain they'll betray you, because the probability is high enough that preparation is rational. This is power, not the power to control others, the power to protect yourself, the power to see clearly, the power to act on what you see rather than what you wish were true. Machiavelli offered this power to anyone willing to accept reality without the comforting lies. Most people refuse the offer. They prefer the lies. They prefer to believe that good intentions prevent bad outcomes. They prefer to trust until trust destroys them. And then they're shocked. They never saw it coming. They thought this person was different. You're not most people anymore. You saw it coming. You recognized the signs. You understood the patterns. And when the betrayal that would have blindsided the old you fails to materialize because you acted on these warnings, you won't receive credit. No one will know you prevented your own destruction. That's fine. The goal isn't recognition. The goal is survival. The goal is maintaining your position while others lose theirs. The goal is being the one who sees the knife before it enters your back. Subscribe now if you want more of this. If you want to continue developing the strategic awareness that separates those who shape events from those who suffer them. The next transmission covers how to make them fear losing you. How to restructure relationships so that betraying you becomes more costly than remaining loyal. How to create incentive structures that align their interests with your survival. The inverse of what we covered today. Not just detecting betrayal, but making betrayal irrational for them to attempt. Machiavelli's final lesson on this subject. Awareness without action is just spectating at your own downfall. You now have the awareness. These 7 signs are clear. The question isn't whether you'll encounter people displaying them. You will. You probably already have. The question is whether you'll act on what you see. Whether you'll prioritize your security over their feelings. Whether you'll choose the discomfort of strategic distance over the catastrophe of misplaced trust. That choice determines everything. Make it like your position depends on it, because it does.